Hi, this Apple IIc has been on the channel for quite a while now and still needs fixing. It's gone through cleaning, inspecting and attempts at repairs, but running into a lack of supplies. I now have the supplies and the tools that I want to try out on it, as well as some other things that I want to try out as well for loading up games. So yeah, let's get to it. Here's one of the Apple IIcs. It's from the mid-80s. Pretty much a plastic case that I've left unclipped because, yeah, it's a bit tricky to get into sometimes. And while I still have the original chunky power supply, I've downsized to this more modern 15 volt DC one, which I've thrown on a DIN connector with a wiring diagram I found on the internet and will link below. It's kind of easy to diagnose some of the memory faults, so we'll switch it on. If you look a little bit closer on the screen, you can see there's a random bracket there, which ain't supposed to be there at all, and kind of doesn't really go away. And the corruption also appears in different ways when you run programs and can even prevent running programs. So we'll get this fixed and we'll start with running the internal diagnostics. You want to hit the open Apple, closed Apple, control, reset, and very quickly it tells you this problem. You can see the corrupted text character is still showing. There's no star next to the RAM because there's no star, it's from the main RAM. And if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, you know that's 4 from the front. And how do I know that? I've got this diagram that I acquired from somewhere a while back, and it shows, yeah, your main RAM and your auxiliary RAM. And then you can easily just look at the main board and see where the chip is. So we can count up from the front and yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we see it's an MT branded chip, which doesn't surprise me because apparently those are quite prone to failure. I wouldn't go ripping them out if they do work because, yeah, who knows what else you could make go wrong if you just pulled it out. Yeah, if it was socketed, yeah, do what you want. But the other interesting thing is I noticed that there's different chip types either side of it. These are Panasonic chips and 4164s, and that's a 4264, which are similar enough that you can use a 4264 in a computer that's expecting a 4164, but not vice versa. So yeah, we should be good here. I have heard that just because the self-diagnostics says it's a particular chip, it actually could be one of the other chips in the bank, just sort of messing with it. So we'll try some other diagnostic methods, and I'll start with the one I know least about first. So this is where I kind of give a disclaimer that I don't really have extensive or really good knowledge of how to use an oscilloscope, and as you can see, I went and bought one of the cheapest oscilloscopes that still had good reviews. Saying that, I did follow some instructions from Adrian's Digital Basement of what to look for. Let's see if I see anything interesting. Let's see if, as a novice, there's actually any point to me using this little device. So apparently the ones I want to look at, according to Adrian's Digital Basement, is these pins, 2 or 14. They're all on the same line, which is about as much as I can sort of tell. Apparently it's an address line for anyone who knows. So with it powered on, let's start probing. Yeah, okay. Okay, well, that doesn't look right. So next up is trying the piggyback method. And I'm going to need some chips, which I went and bought some, and the chips do actually seem to test all right. And to test them, I use this little DRAM tester, which nowadays, if you're looking for it, it's actually 1, 2, 3 sockets long. Yeah, it's the same seller, I just guess it does more. So just a quick look at how it does work. Just plug it in and these 4 different colored lights appear. Get the chip that you want to test. Make sure one is at the top and clamp it in. Then hit the button. And all green appears because, yep, that's what you should be seeing on a 4164. And we'll try a 4264. And this chip lights up with a different color, but that's okay. So we do have a 4264 that we can use to piggyback onto the suspect memory chip. So I'm only really piggybacking like to like. So what you do is you carefully make sure all the pins are lined up and making contact with the chip down below. Then hold it down as you switch on the computer. And it jumps into self-diagnostic mode immediately because it doesn't have the keyboard connected. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. You're not actually seeing the end of it. I don't know. Let's have a poke around. Actually, what happens if we lift the chip? Oh yeah, it ends and you got the little bracket showing. Put the chip back on. Whoa. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Zam. Love me some Zam. Trying it again with the keyboard plugged in. And yeah, that's still piggybacking there. Aha. No mysterious character. Also kind of curious to have a look at the oscilloscope. Okay, so that's interesting. We actually now get something that looks kind of more like normal activity on chip 7. Interesting. So with the oscilloscope showing something more normal, when I had the chip number 4 piggybacked and yeah, chip number 8 looking kind of more normal, I feel like between that test and the self-diagnostics test, chip 4 is the one to replace. The main board is screwed into the bottom half of the case. And then once that one sort of pulls out, because you've got to make sure you avoid the audio connector and knob, it's time to take off this, which often the rubber sort of decays a bit and sticks to the bottom of the power supply. So yeah, good old Subway card from my earlier video. Still surviving, going strong. There it is, the decayed rubber, which yeah, looks all right on that end. The bottom of the board is looking pretty shiny. So now for the careful process of desoldering, and I use blue tack to mark the correct row to desolder. Then I added some fresh solder on before I went and used the Moo gun to suck out the solder. Then I got out my chip prying tool, and with the help of the hot air gun, I was able to gently remove the chip without any resistance. And it's good to see there's no lifted traces, so I'm going to put on an IC socket, which, yeah, should be no worries about clearance here. Further back on the board, you might be getting in the way of the floppy drive. In goes our replacement chip, and we switch it on for the test. And the test just keeps on going. Not sure why. I swapped the working 4064 for a working 4164, and yeah, same result. Before I totally give up hope, I'm going to try it again with the keyboard plugged in, and yeah, there's no little character. That's good. Let's try the self-test, see how that goes. And then, yes, it's a happy working Apple IIc. And let's test that chip I pulled out. And yep, you can see by the red at the bottom, it was only half working. Time to test it out with some games, but first of all, the cleaning disk. And after running that a few more times, time to try out a real disk, and I'm going to use a backup disk I found a while back with a whole pile of games. The game that I played on it first time around was Flight Simulator, which, yeah, kind of has cool graphics for, I guess, the 80s. Pretty cool. Next up, a bit of pinball with Raster Blaster. Not gonna lie, I felt like the game was cheating, or I'm just doing terrible at it. And then the game started bringing in the hacks. Ooh, and then the computer stopped showing anything. And no Apple control reset or switching it off and on again was gonna fix it. So I made sure all the socketed chips were firmly in their sockets, and it's fully working again. So back to trying Raster Blaster with a working Apple II, and I was actually doing a little bit better. Like a little bit. So I could play games without having to use floppy disks. I bought a Floppy Emu, which is this cool little device that comes with a case that you assemble. And yeah, that was actually rather fun to do. You can either plug the Floppy Emu directly onto the main board, or use this little adapter to plug it into the rear disk drive port. And if your Apple IIc's ROM is new enough, it will boot directly off the SmartPort drive. And I'm using Total Replay, which is a huge collection of games on a disk image. So yeah, let's try one of my favorites, Lode Runner. The aim of the game is to collect all the gold squares on the screen, but your only defense against the baddies is drilling the ground and avoidance. It would be cool to read in the comments what your favourite Apple II games are. And another thing I learnt from Adrian's digital basement is Fat City. It's a pretty cool intro screen, and the game, yeah, it's fun as well. You're basically going around knocking down buildings. For some odd reason, people are still in the buildings. Maybe they're like squatters or something, and they have a steady supply of bricks that they chuck at you. You can hit buildings on the backswing and refuel your crane. And if you get tired of the sound, one of the cool features of the IIc is a volume knob. Yeah, nice. Got a high score. It's working. Only 2 more to get working out of all the Apple IIcs. It's only taken me nearly 5 years. So thanks to everyone who has liked, subscribed, watched the videos, and we're going to leave on one of my favorite Apple II games.